Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful, creepy little human being, you. Welcome to my channel and welcome to today's Morbid makeup video. I'm so happy we could meet like this. I'm so happy that somehow in all of this craziness, today, you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or Bratterstein, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing the tragic murder of 16-year-old Emma Walker. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically, you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. One of us. One of us. One of us. And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you want. They're both Bratterstein, but no pressure. So guess what, guys? Today's video is in collaboration with Dossier. Now, if you don't know who Dossier is, you should if you've been here before, but if not, I'm about to tell you who Dossier is right now. Dossier is a fragrance company that creates luxury scents at a fraction of luxury prices, where an average cost of a luxury perfume can be anywhere from $50 to hundreds of dollars. How dare they? Dossier perfumes range anywhere from $29 to $49, and they offer you more deals, more savings when you buy in bulk. So you can get up to 25% off and free shipping when you buy 3 bottles. It sounds like it's too good to be true, but I promise you it's not. So I got 2 scents today, and the first scent I got is actually called Fruity Orange. Oh my gosh. And this scent is inspired by the perfume Clinique Happy, which I know is like a cult classic scent. And I have never smelled that one, but I'm wearing this one today, and man, it smells so good. I smell like a fruit salad, but like a sophisticated fruit salad. Do you know what I mean? And speaking of sophisticated fruit salads, the other scent I got, this one is the scent Floral Berries. This whole box smells good. And this one's inspired by the Jo Malone Peony and Blush Suede Cologne. And oh my God. It smells so good. I love fruity perfumes. I'm kind of like that person. I like something that's kind of fruity and fresh. And this one smells so good. I don't know which one I like more. Wait a minute. Wait just 1 second. This isn't helpful. I need to... imagine them layered. Oh my God. They just smell really good. I don't know what to tell you. Oh. And the best part about Dossier, the thing that really sold me on the company in the first place, besides the good deals, is that Dossier perfumes are cruelty-free, where neither Clinique nor Jo Malone perfumes are. So if you've ever wanted to try those scents, but you're trying to live that cruelty-free lifestyle, these are great alternatives. They smell amazing, and they're a fraction of the price of those other perfumes. I'm just saying. Anyways, guys, Dossier is offering members of the Brat Pack 10% off their new favorite perfume if they click the link in my description box and use the code BRATTERSTEIN at checkout. And to me, that just sounds like a really good deal. I can't imagine you're going to find a better one out there. So if this appeals to you as well, please make sure to click the link down below and use the code BRATTERSTEIN at checkout to get a percentage off of your new favorite perfume today. And they also sell candles that smell the same as their perfumes. So, I mean, there's that as well. The hits keep coming, and they don't stop coming. Anyways, I just want to thank Dossier for continuing to want to work with me on my channel, and of course I want to thank you guys for always being cool as hell and supportive of everything and anything that I do, because you guys are cool as hell. Okay, so now that I'm done spreading the good word of Dossier, we can get into this video. Now, this is a video on a case that I learned about years ago, and at the time I learned about it, I was just like, damn. That's a really sad case. It's a very sad case. It's a very nuanced case, and it's one of those ones that's just gonna bum you out. And it's one that I'm very curious, after you hear the details, what you think really happened. Who killed Emma Walker isn't the question. That's been proven. That's very clear. It was proven to be an obsessive and controlling ex-boyfriend. But the how and the why is up for debate. And even after doing all the research I've done, because I've read all the things I can read, I've watched all the things I can watch, I'm not sure I'm convinced one way or another. And so I want to know what you guys think after hearing about all this, because before I had done my deep dive, I thought I was pretty sure how I felt, but now that I have done it, I find myself more on the fence than I expected to be. With that said, today I'm going to tell you the whole story, and while I do, I'm going to be putting on a full face of makeup, hence the makeup in Morbid makeup. Now, if that's not really your thing, that's cool. Thanks for hanging out this long. I hope you find a channel that covers this case in a way you prefer. But if you're on the fence, you're not sure how you feel, maybe stick around. You could be surprised to find that I'm a good time. And if you're ever curious about the makeup I'm using, I list everything down below for your convenience. So you can find it if you want it. Whatever. So now I think it's time that I stop talking about it and start being about it and start picking up what I'm putting down so you guys can catch what I'm throwing. So come, gather around and let me tell you the story of obsession and stalking that led to the murder of a happy and thriving 16-year-old Emma Walker. On November 21st, 2016 at 6 a.m., Jill Walker, who was Emma Walker's mother, was up for the morning. It was a weekday. She was doing the mom thing, you know, momming, getting herself, getting her kids, getting the day started, when she realized that her teenage daughter, Emma Walker, was not up for school yet, and like she needed to get up. She was usually pretty good at doing so. They needed to get this show on the road. So she goes in the room, she calls out to her daughter, she calls out Emma, and Emma does not respond, which is already a bit odd to her mother. But as she got closer and she saw her daughter's face, her anxiety had to have gone through the roof, because this is when she realized something was wrong. Really realized that something was wrong. And as she reached down to touch her daughter and felt for a pulse, it was confirmed when there was no pulse. Police entered the teenage girl's room and immediately they noticed that there was no signs outwardly of physical violence. The girl just lay in her bed, her head peacefully on her pillow. She just looked like she'd be sleeping. If you didn't know something had happened, you wouldn't have known something had happened. So they talked to the family a bit, and when they learned about her current circumstances, they thought that it was possible that the girl had just taken her own life. She had had a lot going on. There had been a lot of recent stress in her life, and seeing as there was no sign that anything had happened to her, they thought it was possible that nothing did happen to her outwardly. But this was quickly proven not to be the case, because upon looking a little closer, you know, pulling back the sheets, looking a little closer at this girl, there were signs, outward signs of violence. She had actually been killed by a gunshot wound to the head. There was a wound to the left side of her head, right by her ear. And this girl was 16-year-old Emma Walker. Emma Jane Walker was one of two children. Her and her brother were born to Mark and Jill Walker. Emma was born March 20th of the year 2000 in Knoxville, Tennessee. Emma was known as a good girl, a friendly girl. She had a ton of friends and was super loved by everyone who knew her. Friends had said that people would be intimidated by her at first because she was super beautiful and very popular. She was pretty, blonde hair, light-eyed cheerleader. One of the only freshmen who actually made the cheer team, mind you. Like, everybody else was in older grades, but she, as a freshman, was able to get on the squad. So she was a little bit intimidating. But once people met her, they all had the same report, and that was that she was literally the nicest girl in the world. She loved cheerleading. Her friends saying it was one of her passions. She loved the whole energy of it, the competitiveness of the dancing, the football games, the whole shebang. Emma was pretty and petite and goofy and playful. She would do the worm, the dance move on your belly on the floor, to make her friends laugh. She was just a big ball of energy, always laughing, always smiling, always kind. And she was friends with literally anyone and everyone. And man, she was only 16 years old when she was killed. That's an actual baby. It's just so sad. She just seemed like a good kid, a good person. She was driven and ambitious. She was an honor student, and she already had plans for her future. She wanted to graduate high school and go to college so she could get a job as a neonatal nurse because she loved little babies, or a veterinarian because she loved animals, and she even volunteered at an animal shelter in her free time. Come on, man. Her whole life changed, though, her freshman year of high school, when she met and became quickly just so enamored with a older teenage boy named William Riley Gall, who simply went by Riley. This boy, Riley, who Emma had become infatuated with, was 2 years older than she was, and he was a star football player, a wide receiver for any of you football fans out there, if you know what that is, and he played for Central High School, the same high school where Emma was a cheerleader. He was known as being a nice guy, a bit of a goofball, a little nerdy. He was into Star Wars. He was active and present in his church. He was a star athlete, but also had great grades and loved to play video games. He was just seen as an all-around good guy by all of those who knew him prior to what brings us here today. And he was raised by his mom and his grandparents, and he was like a family-oriented kid. When Riley and Emma met, the duo just made sense. He was the handsome football player, and she was the beautiful teenager cheerleader, and the two of them were just super into each other. They were like bing, bang, boom. Let's get together. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Da, 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 da. That was them. The only issue that was presented when the two first met was that Riley actually had a girlfriend at the time. So they didn't start dating immediately, but it didn't take long for him to break up with this girlfriend and start dating Emma. The weird thing about this, though, is that him and this girl broke up right before junior prom. And I guess they had promised to go with each other because they were dating. And since the prom was so close and they had just broken up, he decided to still take his ex to the junior prom, even though he was dating Emma. And there was some speculation that he hadn't actually broken up with her, that he was kind of lying to both girls and dating them both at the same time, though there wasn't any, I didn't find proof of that, just some reports said that he may have been doing that. But, teenagers, they were in high school. Apparently, when the two first started dating, Emma's family was, super into it. Her parents really liked him. They thought he was the all-American boy next door, just a totally good match for their Emma. But when they heard about this prom thing, it definitely, rubbed them the wrong way and put a sour taste in their mouth, because they were like, why should we, and why should you, Emma, be okay with this boy prioritizing another girl's feelings above your own? That's a bit rude. And this was the first time that they saw some red flags in Riley. But though her parents saw these red flags, they did not seem to be apparent to Emma. She kind of had a little bit of blinders on when it came to Riley. She really liked him. She really cared about him. And even though he had done this, she still stayed with him, and they ended up going to the senior prom together, so she still got her prom. And it just seemed like she overlooked a lot of things when it came to Riley and all of his bad qualities in the beginning. And she really just believed in him and in them as a couple. But she was 16 years old. She was an actual baby. When they met, she must have been even younger, because they dated 2 years. The freshman, 14. She's a baby, dude. You expect her to see the negative in some hot older football player? No, that's not how that works. That doesn't even work sometimes with adults. And we know better. Emma and Riley spent a ton of time together. They would hang out at her family's house because, she was young, so they were mostly at her family's house. They would go out to dinner dates after their football games. The two just became inseparable and started taking a million photos, documenting their young love all over their social media. As one does. The problems between the couple started small but progressed quickly. The two would argue a lot. They would fight. They would cry. They would say terrible things to each other. They would break up, and then they would find their way back to each other, which sounds just very, very high school to me and pretty normal. What do you think? But on top of that, Riley seemed to be getting more possessive and controlling. He started to alienate Emma from her friends. He didn't have any interest in spending time with them, and slowly made sure that she didn't either, so that all of her free time was surrounding him. And on the rare occasion that she was out with her friends, he would call her and text her nonstop, so that she couldn't even really totally engage with her friends anyway. It was he was still an ever-present part of every second of all of her days. He even went as far as, she worked at a grocery store, and he would come to her store where she worked, and he would wait there all day just watching her work her shift. No, that's not good. Emma would tell her friends about the way Riley was with her, about the things he would say to her, and they always told her, you should break up with him. You can do better. You deserve better. But Emma didn't really listen to this. She was in love. She wanted to be with Riley. And even, oh my God, she just wanted to be with him no matter what. Even though when they would break up, he would say the nastiest things to her. He was so mean to her. He'd call her the biggest bitch he had ever met in his entire life and say things like, quote, "You're dead to me. I'll check the obituary. Fuck you." And she was like, "But Daddy, I love him." It's just, it's very annoying. It's very frustrating because she was so young and she didn't know better. And these types of cases make me insane. because these kind of relationships are common. As the relationship progressed, Riley got more and more intense and would get mad at her based on the things that she would do, the people she would talk to, and even the clothes that she would wear. He tried to dictate the clothes that she would wear when she would leave her house. And her parents got word of this, and they did not fucking like that one. In their minds, their position on this, which, I mean, I agree with to a point, was that if Emma was living in their home as a teenager, this was up to them, right? It was their decision what sort of things she wore, not her teenage boyfriend. Which, I mean, I think it should be a little, I don't know what I think. I'm not a parent yet. Never mind. It doesn't matter. Maybe it should be Emma's choice, but maybe there should be a line. I will learn as this little boy comes into the world and gets older what things are and are not appropriate to me. Right now, I'm just going in blind as a non-parent, but you know, that's just where my brain goes. Let me know if you have any girls, how you feel about that, because I just don't know. But the relationship just went on a lot like that. Things would get really bad. The two would fight. The two would break up. They'd say horrible things to each other. He'd threaten his life. He'd threaten her life. Then the two would get back together and the whole cycle would start all over again. And it was very exhausting for her. It was very exhausting for her family. And it was very exhausting for her. It was exhausting for everybody involved. It sounds exhausting. I'm so happy I've never been in a relationship like that. I know that they happen. I've seen them in action. But my God, it sounds very exhausting. So Emma's parents saw this pattern. They had been seeing it for a while and they were getting tired of it, quite frankly. And on top of that, her mother had access to her Snapchat and could see the types of messages that Riley would send her when they would break up. And once she read that kind of stuff, like you're dead to me, you're the biggest bitch, like I will look for you in the obituary, that's when she was like, okay, enough of this, and like put her foot down. And that's when her parents, Emma's parents, told her that Riley was no longer welcome in their home, that she could not hang out, she couldn't go on dates with him. They didn't let her do that. And that he was now no longer allowed at their house either. And of course, this definitely upset Emma. Teenagers, you know, they be teenaging. And they even took away her cell phone so that she wouldn't have the option to be speaking to him all day and all night like she had been. But with Emma and Riley, there was no keeping them apart. Ain't nobody want to see them together. But it didn't matter now because he had her girl. And he ended up giving her an iPod Touch, I believe it was, so that she could still text him through that. Because back then, one, if you're young, iPods were a thing, not iPhones. And you could like send messages by using the internet with an iPod Touch, even if you didn't have a phone. And this is how they sneakily still spoke to each other when she wasn't supposed to be speaking to him. Emma's mother said of this time with her daughter, and I quote, "But as you do that with a teenager, the more you butt heads, the more she's going to think he's in the right." Because he had a way of isolating her and making her think that he was the only one. Fast forwarding a little bit, Riley ended up graduating from high school because he was a little bit older than Emma. And after graduating high school, he enrolled in a college that was about an hour away, and this was Maryville College. And once this happened, Emma's parents were like, finally, a little bit of space between them. He's going to be off at school. She's going to be here. Maybe they'll break up. Maybe things will be different. But quickly, her parents found that this was not going to be the case because Emma and Riley had decided that they wanted to keep their relationship going, but this time, long distance. And if you've never been in one, a long distance relationship brings with it a whole new set of problems, okay? Like me and my husband, we dated long distance at first. And right now, I mean, me and him are rock solid now. I love that guy. It's been 12 years? 12 years, I think. Ish. But when we first got together and we did long distance, let me tell you, that is very, very, very challenging. It's a challenging relationship dynamic to be in, especially when you're already not that great with one another like Emma and Riley were. I can't even imagine how hard that was for them because like me and my husband were good when we did long distance. We really liked each other. We had a good relationship, but boy, we fought a lot doing long distance. It's just like hard. It's a really hard thing to do. So things came to a head for the young couple in November of 2016. Young Emma had been sitting on her phone tapping through Snapchat as most youths were doing in 2016. And that's when she came upon something that she just was not a big fan of. And this was photos of Riley with other women, other girls, on the Snapchat. So, you know, just like the worst thing that you could see. What nobody wants to see, especially when you're in a long distance relationship with somebody who you have a tumultuous relationship with. So she sees this and she's like, you know what? We're broken up. And the couple had broken up many times. As I've told you, they were on again, off again, on again, off again. But something about this breakup felt different, not just to Emma, but to those around Emma. Her friends, her family, they all said that it seemed different. She seemed serious this time. It's like a light switch had gone off in her head and she had realized, I deserve a better relationship than the one that I am settling for. Riley did not take this breakup well at all. He had a little bit of a nervous breakdown. And he actually tried, unsuccessfully, to take his own life by ingesting a combination of Vicodin and alcohol. His friends saw this as a major cry for help. They were really worried about him. They were worried how he was dealing with the breakup. I don't know how Emma saw this. All I know is that she did not allow herself to be brought back into his bullshit because of this, and she did not get back in a relationship with him as a result of him trying to take his own life. Which I have to imagine, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm speculating, maybe he was that upset, but I have to imagine that he kind of hoped that doing this would have brought her back to him, but I could be wrong. But that's the vibe I get from him based on things he goes on to do later in the story we're telling today. So now we're going to fast forward a little bit to November 18th, 2006. Emma and her friends wanted to get together for a little post-football party. Emma and her cheerleading friends had been at a football game doing the cheerleading thing, as cheerleaders do. The football team had won, and they wanted to celebrate, and Emma wanted to go. She asked her parents, because at this point she had kind of been on house arrest. You know, her phone was gone. She wasn't allowed to do anything. They were trying to keep her in the house. They were trying to keep her away from Riley. But on this night, her parents were a little bit lenient. They were like, you know what? You seem good. You've been better. Riley has been gone. Go for it, kid. Have a good night. It was that night, the night of the party, that Emma started getting some weird texts to her phone. Texts that were threatening and like random. And this was from a number that was anonymous. It wasn't a number that Emma had saved in her phone. And essentially the person on the other line was saying like, we have someone you love. You need to come outside right now. You need to come outside alone. Don't tell anyone what you're doing. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Just come out, and if you don't, something bad's going to happen to this person. I can call you now. You can hear their screams. Like, just some weird shit. From the context clues of the text, it appeared that whoever was sending her these texts was actually talking about Riley and was saying that they would hurt or kill Riley if she didn't come outside, and then started to guilt trip her for not loving him or caring about Riley enough to actually come outside and try to save him. It was just real sketchy, and she felt weird about it. But finally, she did go outside. She asked a male friend of hers who had been at the party with her, like, hey, will you come out with me? This is really weird. I'm scared. I'm uncomfortable. So they do. They go out, and this is when she sees Riley laying face down in the grass of the front yard of the party, like near a gutter, I believe. It was at this point that Riley started to wake up. He stood. He was kind of dazed. He was kind of confused. He was holding his head like he'd been hurt. And he was like, oh my God, like, what happened? How did I get here? What? Where am I? I was kidnapped, and then I guess they threw me out here. I don't know what's going on. And Emma wasn't buying it. She was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, we broke up. You need to leave me alone. You need to go. So he didn't get the result that he wanted. So he ended up calling his friends to come pick him up. So he calls his friends. He tells his friends the same story, that he had been kidnapped and that his car had been stolen and this and that and this and that. Can you come pick me up? And his friends heard the story and were like, it sounds like bullshit, guy, but yeah, we'll be right there. We're gonna come right now. So they hang up. They start to get ready. They like pop on their shoes. They get in the car. They start to pull out of their driveway. And right as they're pulling out of their driveway, who pulls up? But Riley in his own vehicle that was stolen. So it's clear this guy's just a weird liar and lies to everyone. So now fast forward again. It's the next day. It's the next morning. Emma's at home. It's about 10 a.m. and she's supposed to be getting ready to go and meet her mother somewhere. I couldn't find out exactly where, but it hardly matters. She's in the home and all of a sudden she starts hearing banging on her door. So she looks out. That's when she sees a man, presumably, dressed in all black, head to toe, even with like a mask and glasses and everything, head to toe, banging on her door. And she's like, what the fuck? The person that's the man in black then proceeds to ring the doorbell over and over. It's like this person's really, really trying to get in her home, and it scares the shit out of her. So Emma, being scared, not knowing what to do, who does she contact? But Riley, her ex. She texted him and was like, hey, like, I hate you, but I need you right now. I think I'm in danger. And what does he do? He rushes his ass right over. He comes, he's her knight in shining armor. He checks the house. He checks the neighborhood. He finds nothing. But does he leave after that? No. He decides to take this opportunity to hang out and sit and be with Emma. So Emma's mom, as I said, had been waiting for Emma to show up. And when Emma didn't show up, she got a bad feeling. She had just a sneaking suspicion that something was up. So she headed back home. And what does she find? But Emma and Riley sitting together in front of the house. And she was not happy, dude. They don't like Riley. Her parents don't like Riley. So she tells him, like, he needs to go. And he's like, oh, I'm not going anywhere. I need to be here for Emma. And she's like, get the fuck out of my life. Get off my property. Get out of here. So he leaves. And this is when Emma's mom tells her, like, listen, this is scary. This is a lot. I think, 1, he was lying about being kidnapped last night. 2, I think he has something to do with this man in black incident now. And he's just trying to scare you to win you back. But Emma was not receptive to this information and did not believe that to be the case. So the following day, November 20th, 2016, things seemed relatively normal. Emma definitely seemed a little bit shooken up. She had had a lot going on. She'd had a weird fucking weekend, right? They could definitely tell something was bothering her between the man in black situation and the Riley being kidnapped situation. She was just like a little bit on edge. So her parents actually followed her to work that day to make sure she got there okay. And what they didn't know is that entire day, while she's like trying to just get through the day and have a normal day, Riley is calling and texting her over and over, like trying to get her to talk to him, but she refuses to do so. She's like, I'm not responding to this at all. So she works her shift. She comes home that night and she seems a lot better once she's had like the day to be away from the situation, have a distraction, have work. And she gets home, and her dad that day actually go out and get food at Sonic for dinner because she was really craving ice cream. So they went out and they got a Sonic blast. And she seemed okay. Things seemed good. That night, things seemed totally normal. They hung out together in the evening. Her parents went to bed a little bit later, and she stayed up. They said their goodnights. They said their I love yous. They went in the room. They closed the door. And they had no idea that this would be the last time that they would ever see their 16-year-old child alive again. That night between 2 and 4 a.m., Emma's father was awoken from a dead sleep by a loud noise. He described it as sounding like somebody in his house had opened and just slammed a door shut at full volume, not trying to be quiet at all. So he got up and he checked the house. He checked every room of the house. He went and he looked in on Emma and her brother. Both were just laying in the bed, not moving at all. And he was like, okay, everything seems fine. Nothing seems to be going on. And he just kind of chalked it up to his imagination and went back to bed. Emma's father said of this, and I quote, I opened up her door to her bedroom and I stared at her for probably 15, 20 seconds and she was just lying asleep in her bed. And I shut the door and I went to my son's bedroom and he was asleep. So I thought, I'm hearing things. The next morning, the house was hustling and bustling with that morning time energy. Everybody getting ready for work, everybody getting ready for school. This is when Emma's parents realized that she wasn't up out of bed yet. So her mom went into her room. She called her name. She got no response. She kind of like bumped her daughter's leg with her leg. Got no response. She walked closer. She saw her face. Her anxiety must have just been fucking through the roof, dude. And I can't even imagine how that felt. And then looking at her face and seeing that something seems off. She then reached down to check for a pulse and found nothing. And all of this is happening at 6 o'clock in the morning, dude. I can't even imagine. Her mother said of this, and I quote, I said her name, didn't hear anything. Bumped her leg, didn't hear anything. And then looked at her face and realized, and checked for a pulse, and couldn't find anything. I don't remember a whole lot from that. I know I called 911. This is when her mother calls 911 and she tells the dispatcher that she went in to check on her teenage daughter to get her up for school and that she had no pulse. And I listened to this 911 call, and this poor woman just sounds so frantic on this 911 call. So police arrive, and at first, as I said, they thought that this must have been a suicide. In talking to her parents, they learned how stressed she had been, how she'd been going through a bad breakup, and since she had no outward signs of physical injury, because they hadn't looked hard enough yet, they assumed that she may have taken her own life. And this is actually the rumor that ended up getting out to the kids, the youths in her neighborhood. And this is such a common thing. I remember when my friends were killed like years ago, the types of rumors that came out the day they were murdered, fucking crazy considering what actually happened. Like in hindsight, I'm like, what were we talking about? Who was saying these things? But that's what happened. And from there, Riley started posting about Emma and about the relationship and about losing her all over his social media. He posted a photo of Emma on social media with the following, quote, "That's my beautiful Emma. Rest easy now, sweetheart." 1 Corinthians 13:8. Be sure to remind God about our verse. I love you forever and always. He then made another post that said, quote, "There's not a human on earth that can make the impact that you've had on my life. I miss you more than anything. You'll weigh heavy on my mind for the rest of my life." Because you murdered her. But okay, continuing. Because no one can fill the void that's in my heart now. He also went on to change his Twitter. He changed his Twitter photo to a photo of Emma. He changed his header to a photo of Emma and him together. And he changed his Twitter bio to say, quote, "Living every day through Emma Walker. I love you, beautiful, and I know you're in a better place now." So, though the rumor on the street was that Emma may have taken her own life, police quickly determined this wasn't the case. When they examined her body further, they found that 2 bullets had actually been shot into Emma's room. One had hit her pillow and was still lodged in her pillow, and one had hit her in the head. And these shots were taken from outside her home, and they seemed to be strategic shots because of where they were fired. They were fired at this exact corner of the room, the only place in the house, and it was exactly where Emma's bed was located. The shell casings were both found in the yard, one near the house and one a little bit farther away. People in the community were absolutely shocked to hear about Emma's murder. Just such a young, beautiful girl in the prime of her life, killed in her bed for no reason. It was a lot for people to handle. And they ended up like doing a vigil for Emma and to show support to her parents, where everybody, carried pictures of her and candles, and everybody wore the color purple to just try to let this family know that they weren't totally alone, which it has to feel like you are when something like this happens. I can't even imagine it. Another tribute was actually paid to Emma also at her school during the school's next football game. The bleachers were filled with people who knew and loved Emma, and they let out a bunch of pink balloons into the sky before the game started. So, now that police were treating this case as a murder, they had to start talking to everyone who knew Emma and finding out what they could. Finding out if she had any issues with anybody, if anybody had a grudge against her, if she had any drama with anybody. Is there anybody that may want this girl dead? And that's when they keep hearing the name over and over and over, Riley Gall. So they're like, okay, we need to go speak to this Riley. So they actually go down to his college and they question him. And at first, they don't really think he's involved. He does not raise any alarms in their lizard brains during their interview. That was until they started talking to some of Riley's friends. When they talked to Riley's friends, they learned that his friends were really worried about him. They didn't really think he had done anything, but they were worried about him. They were worried about just the people around him. They were worried because he'd been kidnapped recently. They were worried that he had tried to kill himself recently. And they were worried that now that Emma was gone, he may try to do it again. And they were really worried about this because they knew that at this point in time, Riley had on him, in his possession, a gun. And upon hearing this, officers' ears clearly perked up and they were like, "Gun? You say he has a gun?" And they were like, yeah, he got this gun after he was kidnapped because he wanted to be able to defend himself in the future. So obviously, now police are like, maybe we need to talk to this guy again because now he's got a gun. Emma was shot. 1 + 1 is 2. Bing, bang, boom. Okay. Bing, bang, boom, okay. English is my first language. And I have done some in college. So now at this point, police are really starting to kind of suspect him, and they want to question him further. They're starting to think, wow, this is probably the guy who's responsible. So they bring him down to question him, and he gives them an alibi, but he doesn't really sell them on his alibi. He tells them that he had been at his friend Noah's that night, and that the two were alone. He was pretty sure no one else came over. And when asked if he spent the night, he was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. And the cops were like, yo, you're not sure if you spent the night at your friend's house or at your house? And he's like, okay, I am absolutely sure. He then tells police that after seeing Emma that day, he went to his grandparents' house and then back to his dorm where he had a mental breakdown, sitting there for several hours crying and looking at photos of him and Emma. Which is like not the same thing as being at Noah's all night. That's the one thing about his confession that like confused my brain. And it wasn't clear if he like changed his alibi and then said that, or if he said both of these things. But that part confused my brain. But anyway, one of the detectives who worked on this case said of Riley Gall, and I quote, "When I first met him, I thought he might have been a grieving boyfriend. When we got into the interview room and sat down, I felt like there was a dark side. He didn't have a whole lot of passion or concern." Riley just seemed to investigators to be very disconnected and very unconcerned. He didn't even, not with the crime itself, but with Emma. He seemed disconnected and unconcerned with Emma. And it's like he was trying to put some distance between him and her. And he wouldn't even refer to her in the interrogation by name. He just called her like the girl who passed away. And then he tells police that like he had been trying to get a hold of Emma, but he didn't call her Emma. I've been trying to get a hold of the girl all weekend. I called over and over and over, and eventually she ended up blocking me. I even tried to reach her from a friend's number. Like I was really trying to get a hold of this girl, whose name I will not say. He told police that he had been calling her because he wanted to get back together, that he was having a really hard time with the breakup, that he loved her and he wanted to get back together, but that she wasn't into it. And she told him like, you need to stop calling me. You're fucking crazy. Get a life. You creep. The officers then questioned him about guns, his grandparents' guns, asking him if he had seen them, if he had access to them, if he knew how to use them. And that's when he was like, me? Guns? No, silly, absolutely not. I would never, and I have never, and I don't know why you would say that. And that's when police were like, well, what if we were to tell you that we've already talked to somebody who said not only did they know that you knew of guns and had handled guns, that they had seen you with a gun right around the time that Emma was killed. And he was like, and he kind of deflected, and he was like, well, I'd want to know who said something like that and when exactly they saw me with this crazy, unreal gun that they're talking about. The problem that Riley was facing here was that police had already talked to his friends. One of his friends in particular was this friend named Noah, and Noah had told police some very interesting and damning information, and that was that Riley had asked him once, like, hey Noah, yes Riley, do you know how one could go about removing fingerprints from a gun? And Noah was like, no, I fucking don't. That's a weird goddamn question. Don't ever ask me something like that again. And he's like, oh, no, it wasn't for me. It was for a friend. I thought it was weird too. And Noah had already told police about this conversation. So police actually questioned Riley about this conversation as well. And again, he just denies everything. He was just completely like, I don't know what Noah's talking about. This guy is crazy. Like, that's really, really weird. I don't know why he would tell you that. And then he's like, am I a suspect? Like, it's like it just dawned on him that he may be. And they were like, well, should you be? Anyways, he leaves this interrogation and he's all hyped up and he's upset. And he calls his friends and he's like, what the fuck, guys? Why would you tell police about the gun? Why would you tell police about the fingerprints? Why would you do any of this? And this is when his friends tell him, like, bro, if you didn't do this, turn the gun over to the police. They could test it and easily prove that it wasn't you, and all of this would just go away. And that's when he's like, well, here's the thing. I did have the gun, but I already got rid of the gun. I got rid of the gun way before anything even happened to Emma. It's been back at my grandparents' house this entire time. And they're like, okay. And he's like, and on top of that, like, if you guys are really my friends, if you're really like my boys, just stop talking to police altogether. You are not helping me. You're only hurting me. And I'm going to end up getting pinned for something that I didn't do. But these friends, and hearing this information, were just kind of like in their heads, we're pretty sure you actually fucking did it though. So they actually end up agreeing to work with police to wear wires to get information out of Riley. And from what I read, they actually approached police. They didn't even wait for police to come to them. They went to police and they're like, hey, we're willing to do this because we're all about the justice. And they were like, the police were like, okay, you can, but like, this is dangerous. What you're suggesting doing is dangerous. And they were like, I don't care. It's the right thing to do. Fucking helicopter, bro. Anyways, this was Alex and Noah, and they were like, it's worth it to try to catch this guy if he did kill Emma. And all I can say is, like, we need more teenage boys like Alex's and Noah's. Everyone needs an Alex and a Noah in their lives. So Alex and Noah, armed with, you know, hidden cameras and microphones, wires, all that jazz, invite Riley over to hang out and try to get some information. They invite him over to play some video games. And of course, the teenage boy's like, fuck yeah, let's play some video games. So he comes over, and when he's at the house, the hidden camera is pointed right at the couch where Riley is sitting so that they can try to get whatever information they can off of him. And he does not outright admit to the murder. He actually keeps denying it over and over. He's not coming clean even with his friends. He says that he would never do something like this, that he would never, ever hurt somebody that he loved, and definitely not kill them. And he also tells his friends that, like, they should go to police and recant the statements that they've given so far because they make him look so bad. And like, they could just tell the police that like they were high on drugs when they said all this and they were talking crazy and they don't know what they were talking about. And the boys, of course, they bring up the gun because it's their job. And they're like, why don't you just get the gun? Go to your grandparents' house, get the gun, give it to police and just show them they can prove that it wasn't you. And he's like, no. This gun, it just needs to be gone. I can't say why. There's no real reason. It just needs to be gone. So that's when they decide as a group that they should go and dispose of the gun. It was Riley's idea to take it to the Bluffs, which is this like wooded area near the water where like teenagers would go and get high and party and drink and all that shit. And he's like, hey, let's go. Let's get the gun. Let's go to the Bluffs. Let's throw it in the Tennessee River and this problem will never, it'll just be gone. It'll no longer exist. There will be no issue. And they're like, okay, cool guy. Like, we got your back. Let's go do this. So the three boys, they head out, they get in the car and they start driving to Riley's stepdad's house, not his grandparents' house, because the gun was actually at his stepfather's house. They get there and the two boys wait in the car while Riley goes in and retrieves the gun from the basement, and he carries it out in a bag of trash. It's like a big trash bag with other items in it as well, including the gun. So he gets in the car and they're kind of trying to get him to show them the gun. They've never seen a gun, and he's like, nah, dog, I'm not going to pull it out. So they drive around for a bit, they go through a drive-thru, they get some fast food, they eat, and then they start heading towards the Bluffs. They get over to that area and they end up going into this apartment complex where one of the boys had been before, so they had the little code to get in, and they park there and kind of hang out for a while and talk for like 5-10 minutes before finally Riley is like, okay, let's do this. And he puts on a pair of gloves and he pulls the gun out of the trash bag. And meanwhile, all of this is happening. The police are following the car because one, they've been watching them, and two, Noah and Alex are in a like group chat with the officers and are literally texting them every step of the way so that cops know when to close in. So once he puts on the gloves and starts pulling the gun out, that's when they text and they're like, now it is time. Green is go, go, go. Come on, let's do this. The issue here is the teenage boys had the gate code to get into the apartment building. The police did not. So while police are working on getting into the apartment building, Riley's sitting there holding the gun that presumably killed Emma in his hands. And these boys have got to be sweating at this point, just waiting for the cops to show up. But they don't. And so Riley's like, okay, let's go. And as they go to get out of the car, to walk towards the water to dispose of the gun, they are swarmed by a fleet of police officers. So police order all three boys out of the car and they all comply. They were like, oh shit, they've like played it cool, like they didn't know the cops were coming. They all get out of the car, they raise their hands above their heads, and Riley Gall was arrested without incident in only 90 seconds. It all happened very quickly. And once arrested, he was charged with the first-degree murder of Emma Walker, along with charges for theft, tampering with evidence, reckless endangerment, possession of a firearm during a dangerous felony, and stalking. In the trash bag in the car, police also found a bunch of all-black clothing, shoes, gloves, and duct tape. In looking at all the evidence, once it was all laid out before them, police discovered that not only had Riley killed Emma, but he had also been stalking her and harassing her before that. He had staged his own kidnapping. He had this app on his phone that he could use to like scramble his phone number to make it appear that it was coming from like a burner phone, and this is the app he was using to send those texts to Emma the night that he was presumably kidnapped, so it was all him. And when they found all the black clothing in the car, they put together that he was also the man in black who had come to the house and had been trying to scare Emma into, you know, calling him for help. But like, what would have happened if she had opened the door? What would he have done to her at that point? Now, after his arrest, it took a while for the trial to start, as we sometimes see in these cases, and Riley's trial didn't even start until May of 2018, so over a year after Emma's murder. At Riley's trial, his defense team did something interesting. I'm assuming that they looked at all the evidence and they realized that, like, their ship had sunk. There was no way they were going to get their client off as innocent, because everything was pointing at him. So they didn't try that. They didn't say that he was innocent. They said that he was guilty, but that he wasn't guilty of murder. He was guilty of reckless homicide. That Riley did not mean to kill Emma. That when he shot into her house, he was just trying to scare her like he had done previously. He was trying to rattle her cage so that she would then run to him to be her protector, and that things had just gone horribly wrong. The prosecution disagreed with this because of the specificity of the shots, though. Both shots entered exactly where Emma's bed was located, exactly where her head would have been sleeping on a pillow. The person who shot this gun was very clearly trying to kill her, not scare her. After a week of trial where the jury heard testimony from 30 plus witnesses, they were sent into a room to deliberate. On May 8th, 2018, after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury told the court that they had found 19-year-old Riley Gall guilty of first-degree murder along with all the other charges, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 51 years. So he won't even be eligible for parole till he's in his 70s. Emma's father said of losing his daughter, and I quote, "There aren't even enough words to express the grief and the hole in my heart. There will be no more family vacations with her. No new memories to cherish. I will never see her graduate high school, go to college, get married, walk down the aisle to the real man she had chosen, to have children and a family of her own, to tell my grandchildren stories of their mom as a child. I'll never hear her voice again." During his sentencing hearing, Riley Gall did make a statement apologizing to Emma's family for what he had done, and I'm going to read that statement now. That statement was, and I quote, "First and foremost, I would like to sincerely apologize to the Walker family for causing nothing but pain and turmoil to their entire family. My words may carry little to no value to you, but I found it imperative to let you know the truth, that I'm sorry that I took Emma away from you, that I robbed you of the experience of being able to watch your daughter grow up. Again, I am sorry. I would also like to apologize to my family for the pain and embarrassment I've put you through. I love you, and I hope that you can forgive me. I know that nothing I will do will ever bring Emma back or alleviate the pain that I have caused, but what I can do is tell the truth of what happened that night. My intentions were not and never have been to cause Emma any physical harm. At times, I was a terrible boyfriend. I caused her emotional and psychological pain during those 2 years that we were together, but I never wanted to see or imagine anything would cause her physical harm. My intentions that night were never to harm Emma, but I wanted to save our love. I wanted to scare her, to frighten her so bad that she would have no choice but to talk to me again, to confide in me. I would be there to comfort her and win her back. I loved Emma, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her or what I did. I know that I can't be forgiven and that this will never be forgotten. But now that the truth is out, I pray that it's enough to prove that I never meant to take Emma's life. Again, I am sorry." Emma's family has done the best they can to make something good out of this horrible thing that happened to their daughter. And Emma's mother, Jill, hopes that her daughter's story can serve as a warning for others in abusive relationships. And she said of this, and I quote, "If your boyfriend or girlfriend is telling you you can't go there, or what to wear, or who to hang out with, or who to talk to, it's not okay. I think when they become quiet and withdrawn, it's a big sign too. It's not just bruises. It's emotional and controlling." Emma's family has also done their best to kind of keep her memory alive, keep what she was all about present, and just kind of like honor that. So if you remember from the beginning, I told you that Emma loved animals and loved babies. She wanted to be either a veterinarian or a neonatal nurse. Well, since her death, her family has had both a dog park and a patient's room at the East Tennessee Children's Hospital, both named for Emma, which I think is very sweet. And her mother said of this, and I quote, "It's all things that are part of Emma and all mean something." And then she went on to continue saying that she hopes that people can respect her daughter's legacy and live for her daughter by just being kind to others. And with that just statement, that, my friends, is the story of the murder of Emma Walker. I want you to let that kind of sink in to you for a second, because I have some questions for you. The first thing I think we can start with is that there's no doubt that this is so fucking sad and tragic, right? Like, this young girl who seemed by all accounts to be just like an awesome 16-year-old, just friendly and nice and bubbly and playful, that just got into like this bad relationship, and her life was stolen from her at such a young age. We have no idea what she will go on to be, what she could have done, because this dickbag murdered her in her bed. It's really fucked up. There's no question about that. But what I do wonder is, do you think he meant to kill her? Because I was looking at the trajectory, both of his escalating actions and also of the bullets that entered her room that night, and man, I just don't know. I should have put a photo up in editing where it showed like how the bullets were shot into her house, and man, it sure does seem like someone knew exactly where they were shooting. But based on his behavior, he had been recently trying to scare her over and over and doing more and more intense things to try to scare her into running to him and confiding in him and loving him again, that it really makes me wonder, like, could that be what he was trying to do and he just made a big fucking mistake? I definitely go back and forth on that point, but what I will say is I don't know if I think it really matters, because whether he meant to kill her or not, he did kill her. Whether he did it intentionally out of anger and obsession, or if he was just driven so mad by his control and his obsession over her that he accidentally killed her, he still ended her life, and I think his sentence should probably remain the same regardless. But let's just call this the question of the day. Do you think that Riley Gall meant to murder Emma Walker? Leave your answers down below. But anyways, guys, that completes this video. I hope you found it interesting and informative, and it gave you all the information you would want when looking into this case, because it's definitely one worth remembering. And of course, I want to thank you for hanging out and remembering Emma with me today. Her case is definitely one that we can learn from, so that we can look for signs in not only our relationships, but the relationships of those around us, because there were clear signs that this guy was dangerous, and his behavior in the time leading up to the murder was so scary and should have been a red flag to more than just her parents. And his obsession for her, disguised in his mind as teenage love, led him to murder her. She's gone forever. That cannot be undone no matter how hard anyone tries, and that is heartbreaking. But anyways, guys, please let me know down below of any cases you would like to see me cover in the future. As you know, I have a long list of cases, but whenever you leave me a suggestion, I always want to look into it because you guys have really good case suggestions. And then if I cover it, I love to give you a shout out because I know you're filled with good ideas and good taste. Otherwise, you would not be here. If you haven't already, don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every week and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you. And if you want to hang out more consistently, I've got all my social media linked down below for your convenience. Instagram, Twitter, a Facebook page, and a Facebook group, along to a list of all the makeup I used, earrings, usually nail polish, but my baby shower is on Saturday, so just in 2 days, and I want my nails to be like nice and fresh so I can paint them for my baby shower, so I didn't do that today. When you're watching this, it's going to be like March, and you're going to be like, baby shower, we already did that. Yes, I'm pre-filming for when I'm pregnant, so I don't have to miss any uploads, but all of that will be linked down below, along with a link to my merch store in case you want to get any merch, because I made some merch because you wanted some merch, so you can click down there to get some merch. And anyways, guys, that's it. With all of that said, I just want to thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That is tight. You are tight. Please stay safe and be a better person than you were yesterday, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.